Last night, your soulmate's family asked about you and your soulmates. Answer: Leet. Everyone speechless. My beloved child, stop for a heartbeat, because what unfolded last night was far more powerful than anyone in that room expected. A simple question was spoken, yet the silence that followed carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken emotions. No one saw it coming. No one imagined that your name alone could change the atmosphere so completely. And when your soulmate finally chose to answer, every face around the table froze in disbelief. Stay with this story, because what seemed like an ordinary conversation slowly became a moment that no one present will ever forget. It began quietly. There was no dramatic entrance, no loud announcement. Just an evening filled with familiar voices, shared memories, and gentle conversations flowing from one topic to another. Then, almost unexpectedly, someone mentioned you. It wasn't planned. It wasn't rehearsed. It happened so naturally that your soulmate barely had time to prepare. Another family member leaned forward with quiet curiosity and asked a simple question: what is it about this person that keeps appearing in your thoughts? For a brief moment, everything became still. Your soulmate didn't answer immediately. Not because there were no words, but because there were too many. Sometimes the deepest truths are the hardest to explain. Sometimes the heart refuses to rush when it knows the next sentence could reveal everything it has been protecting. Look closely at this moment. What if the greatest answers in life are never spoken quickly? What if silence itself is proof that something meaningful is taking shape beneath the surface? That is exactly what happened. Everyone waited. Eyes turned toward your soulmate. The room expected a short reply. Instead, they witnessed something entirely different. A quiet smile appeared. Not the smile people wear to hide emotions, but the kind that escapes when the heart remembers something precious. One family member noticed it immediately. Another exchanged a surprised glance. Someone whispered, "I've never seen that expression before." The atmosphere shifted without anyone realizing why. Stay a little longer, because the next few moments explain why this title exists at all. Finally, your soulmate looked up. Their voice remained calm. Yet every single word carried unmistakable sincerity. "I don't know how to explain it," they began softly. "Whenever I think about them, everything feels different." The room fell silent again. No one interrupted. No one laughed. No one questioned those words. Because authenticity has a remarkable way of commanding attention. Then came another sentence. One that no one expected. "They make me imagine a future that I never thought I wanted." Those words echoed through every corner of the room. An older family member slowly nodded. Someone else smiled without realizing it. Another quietly placed their cup on the table, completely absorbed by what they had just heard. You might think this was the end. It wasn't. In many ways, it was only the beginning. Because once the first honest sentence leaves the heart, the rest often follows without fear. Your soulmate continued speaking, not dramatically, not emotionally overwhelmed, but with a rare clarity that surprised even them. "I've met many people," they admitted, but very few ever made me become a better version of myself simply by existing in my thoughts. No one could respond immediately. The family wasn't speechless because the words were loud. They were speechless because they were real. Think about that. How often does honesty arrive without trying to impress anyone? How often does a simple truth carry more power than 100 perfect speeches? This conversation wasn't about proving anything. It wasn't about convincing anyone. It was about recognizing a feeling that had quietly grown stronger over time. And perhaps that is why everyone listening understood something important in that very moment. Some connections don't demand attention. They naturally earn it. Before this story moves forward, remember one thing. Not every meaningful chapter begins with excitement. Sometimes it begins with one unexpected question. One unforgettable answer. And one evening that changes how everyone sees the future. The next part reveals what happened immediately after those words were spoken, and why the family's reaction became even more astonishing than anyone could have imagined. Wait. Because what happened after those heartfelt words left the room in complete silence for reasons no one expected. The conversation could have ended there, yet destiny seemed determined to reveal another layer. If you've stayed this far, you're exactly where you need to be. Every moment is leading towards something larger, and by the end of this journey, every piece will connect. For several long seconds, no one spoke. It wasn't an uncomfortable silence. It was the kind of silence that appears when people suddenly realize they've witnessed complete honesty. Then the oldest member of the family slowly leaned forward. Their eyes rested on your soulmate, almost as if they were searching for something hidden beneath those words. Finally, they asked another question. Are you certain this isn't just a passing feeling? No one moved. Every heartbeat in the room seemed louder than before. Your soulmate took a slow breath. This time, there was no hesitation. No, they answered with complete confidence. Feelings come and go. This isn't one of them. Every day I understand a little more why this person matters to me. Those words carried unexpected weight. Someone quietly lowered their gaze. Another family member smiled, almost relieved. A younger relative whispered, I've never heard you speak like this before. Your soulmate simply nodded. I know, they replied softly. Because I've never felt this certain before. That sentence changed everything. The conversation was no longer about curiosity. It became about possibility. One by one, family members began sharing small observations they had never mentioned aloud. We've noticed you've been happier lately. You smile more often. Even difficult days don't seem to affect you the same way. Your soulmate listened quietly. Then, with remarkable honesty, they admitted something that surprised everyone. I didn't notice those changes myself until tonight. Think about that for a moment. Sometimes other people recognize our transformation before we do. Sometimes the people closest to us become mirrors, reflecting growth we haven't yet seen ourselves. Isn't that fascinating? Stay with this story. Because another unexpected moment is about to unfold. The oldest family member folded their hands together and smiled warmly. If this person brings out your best self, they said gently, then perhaps they deserve more credit than they'll ever know. No dramatic celebration followed. No loud applause. Just quiet understanding. And strangely enough, that understanding felt far more powerful. Your soulmate looked around the room and realized something remarkable. They no longer felt the need to hide what they truly felt. For the first time, speaking your name no longer felt uncertain. It felt natural. Almost inevitable. If this story has touched something inside you so far, I'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts below. Share what moment stood out to you the most, and if stories like this speak to your heart, consider subscribing so we can continue exploring these unforgettable journeys together. Now listen carefully. Because the conversation wasn't over. One final question remained. A family member looked directly at your soulmate and asked quietly, "If this person were standing here tonight, what would you want them to know?" The room became still once again. Your soulmate closed their eyes for only a second. Not to search for an answer, but to gather the courage to say it aloud. The words they chose next would leave everyone present more astonished than anything spoken before. And those words will change the direction of this story completely. Before you look away, imagine standing at the edge of a moment that has the power to redefine everything you thought you understood. This is where the conversation reached its deepest point. Every word spoken before had been preparing for this single answer. No one in that room realized they were about to witness the sentence that would remain in their memories long after the night had ended. Stay until the final moment, because this chapter carries the heartbeat of the entire story. The question still hung in the air. If this person were standing here tonight, what would you want them to know? Your soulmate didn't rush. They looked out the window for a quiet moment, as if searching the night sky for the perfect words. The room remained completely still. Even the smallest sound seemed to disappear. Then, almost in a whisper, they began. "I would tell them they never had to become someone else to matter." The family exchanged silent glances. Your soulmate continued. "I would tell them that what impressed me was never perfection. It was their heart, their resilience, the way they kept moving forward even when life asked them to carry more than most people ever see." A gentle smile appeared on one family member's face. Another quietly wiped away a tear. Not from sadness, but because sincere words have a way of reaching places ordinary conversations never can. Then came another sentence. "I hope they never underestimate the light they bring into other people's lives, because they changed mine without even trying." The room fell into complete silence once again. No one interrupted. No one searched for another question. Sometimes truth finishes a conversation all by itself. Think about that. How often do we spend our lives believing our quiet actions go unnoticed? Yet somewhere, without realizing it, we may have become someone's reason to hope, someone's reason to smile, someone's reminder that goodness still exists. Perhaps that is why this evening became unforgettable. It wasn't about dramatic promises. It wasn't about impossible predictions. It was about recognizing the quiet influence one person can have on another life. One family member finally spoke. "I understand now." Everyone turned toward them. They smiled warmly at your soulmate and said, We weren't speechless because of who you were talking about. They paused. We were speechless because we've never seen you speak with this much peace. Those words settled over the room like the final piece of a beautiful puzzle. Your soulmate lowered their head with a grateful smile. For the first time that evening, there was nothing left to explain. The family no longer needed convincing. They had seen something far more meaningful than excitement. They had witnessed clarity. And clarity has a quiet strength that never needs to raise its voice. As the evening came to an end, everyone slowly returned to their routines, yet the atmosphere had changed. The conversation was over, but its meaning remained. Long after the lights dimmed and the house grew quiet, each person carried those words with them, reflecting on how one honest conversation had brought hearts a little closer together. And perhaps that is the real message hidden inside this story. Sometimes the most unforgettable moments aren't created by extraordinary events. They are created by ordinary people choosing extraordinary honesty. The answer that left everyone speechless wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was genuine. And sometimes, genuine words echo the longest. Just when it seemed the night had reached its conclusion, something happened that no one expected. The conversation had ended, the lights were beginning to dim, and everyone slowly drifted toward their own thoughts. Yet there are moments in life when the most meaningful part of a story begins only after the words have stopped. Before you leave, stay with me a little longer, because this final chapter reveals why that unforgettable evening continued to echo long after everyone went to sleep. As your soulmate prepared to leave the room, one family member quietly called their name. Wait. The voice was calm, but filled with quiet certainty. Your soulmate turned around. The older family member walked over with a gentle smile and placed a reassuring hand on their shoulder. I've watched you grow for many years, they said softly. I've seen excitement, disappointment, dreams that came and went. But tonight was different. Your soulmate listened without saying a word. For the first time, the family member continued, you weren't speaking from emotion alone. You were speaking from peace. Those words settled deeply. Not because they were dramatic, but because they felt unmistakably true. Your soulmate smiled. A genuine smile that needed no explanation. In that moment, everyone understood why the evening had felt so unforgettable. It was never about proving anything. It was about discovering the courage to express something real. As the family exchanged quiet goodbyes, one final thought remained in the room. Sometimes the people closest to us don't remember every conversation. They remember the night they saw someone become completely honest. And that was the night they would remember. As your soulmate stepped outside beneath the quiet sky, they looked upward for a brief moment. There was no need for another speech. No need for grand promises. Only one silent realization echoed within them. Some people enter your life, and without even realizing it, they help you become the person you were always meant to be. That realization stayed with them long after the evening ended. Maybe that's why this story matters. Not because it predicts the future. Not because it promises impossible outcomes. But because it reminds us that genuine appreciation, sincere words, and authentic connections have the power to leave lasting impressions on everyone who witnesses them. If this journey resonated with you, I'd truly love to know which moment stayed with you the longest. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoy stories that explore hope, connection, and meaningful conversations, subscribing is a wonderful way to join us for the next chapter. Remember this as the screen fades to black. Some conversations last only a few minutes. Some answers are spoken only once. But the right words, at the right moment, can stay in someone's heart forever. And perhaps, somewhere tonight, another quiet conversation is beginning. One that will remind someone else that the most powerful answers are often the ones spoken with honesty, kindness, and complete sincerity. Until the next story, keep believing in the quiet moments, because they often carry the loudest truths. A new day arrived, yet the impact of that conversation refused to fade. What happened the following morning was something no one could have predicted. The family wasn't talking about ordinary plans anymore. They were still talking about one thing. Your soulmate's answer. The words had ended the night before, but their meaning had only just begun to unfold. Don't miss this final stretch, because sometimes the greatest confirmation comes after everyone has had time to reflect. At breakfast, the atmosphere felt different. Not awkward. Not tense. Simply, thoughtful. One family member broke the silence with a gentle smile. I kept thinking about what you said last night. Another quietly agreed. So did I. Your soulmate looked surprised. They had spoken honestly, expecting the conversation to disappear with the evening. Instead, those sincere words had stayed with everyone. An older relative looked across the table and said something that caught everyone off guard. You know what impressed me the most? Your soulmate waited patiently. It wasn't that you spoke about someone special. A brief pause followed. It was the respect in every sentence. The room became still again. Because everyone realized that true admiration isn't measured by dramatic declarations. It's revealed in the quiet way we choose our words. There was no exaggeration. No attempt to impress. Only gratitude. Only appreciation. Only honesty. And perhaps that is why those words felt unforgettable. Think about this for a moment. What if the strongest connections aren't built on constant attention, but on consistent respect? What if the people who leave the deepest mark on our lives are the ones who inspire us to become calmer, wiser, and kinder? That thought lingered around the table. Then another family member smiled and said, if meeting this person has helped you grow like this, then we hope one day we'll have the chance to thank them ourselves. No one expected those words. Even your soulmate couldn't hide their surprise. A quiet laugh filled the room. Not because anyone was joking, but because every heart there suddenly felt lighter. In that simple moment, something changed. The conversation was no longer about questions. It had become about hope. Hope that genuine people still exist. Hope that meaningful connections still find their way into ordinary lives. Hope that kindness is never wasted. As your soulmate prepared to leave the house, they paused at the doorway. One last thought crossed their mind. They may never fully realize how much they've influenced my journey. But I hope they never stop being exactly who they are. Those silent words remained unspoken. Yet somehow, they carried more meaning than an entire evening of conversation. And perhaps that's the hidden truth behind this entire story. Sometimes the most powerful messages are never sent. They are quietly carried in someone's heart, shaping every choice they make from that day forward. The family never forgot that unforgettable night. Your soulmate never forgot the courage it took to speak honestly. And maybe, somewhere beyond what either of them could see,